Good morning, everyone. This is Frank DiMora from actually the ministry, the End Times Research Ministry, but I'm posting on my older site from the BibleProphecyMan.com. And the reason why I'm doing this is because we're having a little bit of problems with my other site, which is the End Times Research Ministry. So if you clicked on it today, you'd see that this account has been suspended. But it's not a major problem. We are going to get this resolved, and the site, the End Times Research site, will be back online shortly. So in the meantime, while we're taking care of that, I'll be posting my information at my old site, BibleProphecyMan.com. So there you have it. Hopefully that'll stop some of the emails I'm getting saying that your site is down, and I understand many of your concerns about it, but don't worry about it because the news will go out either way, either on the End Times Research Ministry or at my older site, which is right here. So let's get into some prophecy, because in the news, I've been watching what's going on, and if you've been watching the news, you know that there's the news that we're seeing is very significant in relation to the Isaiah chapter 19 prophecy. Let me read a little bit about this prophecy for you. It says this, and I'm going to be reading from verses 1 through 4. It says, "The burden of Egypt, behold, the Lord rideth upon the swift cloud, and shall come into Egypt. And the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it. And I will set," now this is where it gets interesting, "Egyptians against Egyptians, and they shall fight everyone against his brother, and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom." Now this is really interesting, these words that we find in Isaiah 19, verse 2, because when you read Matthew chapter 24, these are the identical words that the Lord shows us in Matthew chapter 24 when he talks about kingdom against kingdom. So we know that the Lord's words are coming to fruition, either from Matthew chapter 24 or from Isaiah chapter 19. So let's go on in verse 3 now. It says, "And the spirit of Egypt shall fall in the midst thereof, and I will destroy the counsel thereof, and they shall seek to the idols, and to the charmers, and to them that have familiar spirits." In other words, they're not seeking Jesus, they're going every place but. "And to the wizards, and the Egyptians will I give over into the hand of a cruel Lord, and a fierce king shall rule over them, saith the Lord of hosts." So usually what happens, if you don't want to come to the Lord God, then God will turn you over to something that is obviously the opposite of God. So if you don't love the Lord, and the Egyptians have been going, they're not following the God of the Bible, they're following Islam, Muhammad, and Allah. And when you're going to notice the difference, if you read the Quran compared to the Bible, you're going to notice that the laws of the Sharia law that are instrumental coming out of Islamic faith are very, very strict laws that inhibit freedoms, and they are actually dictatorships, and brutal, as you're going to see from the news that I'm going to be showing you today, that even those that proclaim to be Islamists are doing the exact opposite. They're doing things that we see Satan would promote, and I'm not kidding, you're going to see this in the news. So what I wanted to say this, and I even wrote this for you, I'm just going to read it because I know that there's a lot of people who are having issues with reading, so I'm going to make sure, because this is really important, and for those that have bad eyesight, they're going to love it when I read it. It says, "I wanted to bring you up to date as to what was happening in Egypt, because the next move by either Mohammed Morsi's government or the protesters against Morsi could show us a clear picture of Isaiah 19, or the Isaiah 19 prophecy. Now let me explain. Now we know for sure that part of Isaiah has already been fulfilled. And we know this because without a doubt Egyptians are fighting against Egyptians, just as the prophecy states. Now the part I am unsure of at this point is whether Marcy is the cruel Lord of which the Lord which God warns. Now, as you will see from the news report below, we could see another civil war flare up in Egypt over Muhammad Marcy's rule. And you see, when the Egyptians rioted to get rid of Egypt's last president, and I didn't put this in here, but that was Mubarak, they thought that they were on their way to a democratic way of life. Now, as we can all see now, those hopes were dashed with the help of Obama and Marcy. Egyptians thought Marcy was the man who would change things for the better. However, as I warned over a year ago, Marcy, instead of bringing democratic changes, all he did was install an Islamic Muslim Brotherhood government, which of course promotes the opposite of freedom. And over the course of the past year, Egyptians began to notice Marcy's government was taking on the Muslim Brotherhood agenda, which was to install strict Islamic rule and Sharia law. Now, the sad part about all this is the U.S. president has also promoted the Islamic Muslim Brotherhood government. America, which is supposed to be the nation who promotes freedom, has jumped in bed with Marcy's government. And since Muhammad Marcy became president, Obama has given Marcy's Muslim Brotherhood billions of dollars to shore up his government, and he has given them millions of U.S. dollars in military aid, such as the jets, as seen in the Fox News headline, and you'll see this in yellow. U.S. gives 4 more F-16 fighter jets to Egyptian president despite outcry. And here is a section of that report. 4 more F-16 fighter jets left the U.S. on Thursday, headed for Egypt as part of the foreign aid package that has guaranteed controversy given the political upheaval in the Mideast country. Critics say the military aid should stop because the president Egyptians elected last year has led the Muslim Brotherhood, called President Obama liar, and urged that hatred of Jews be instilled in children. So what they did, if you didn't read this article that I posted before, and I posted this a couple times now, Barack Obama has been giving jets. You'll see that this was only the second. He's already given them jets, and this is more of the same. 4 more of these jets, and each jet comes. Each jet comes with a package of $30 million. Each jet. So he's given them a lot of money to shore up, as I said, the Egyptian government and their military. So it goes on to say, in the report you will see below, you will see 15 pictures of Egypt's citizens who get what Obama is doing to Egypt. And while Americans are being led astray by Obama as they see their rights erode, Egyptians see clearly what the actions of Obama have had on their nation. One must ask, why is the president, who is supposed to represent the free world, supporting Islam and the terrorists who are working to destroy the democratic way of life? Now, Egyptian's military has given Marcy a time limit to step down, and that time limit is up in a few hours. Now, if you watch Good Morning America, you saw they had some pictures and some videos about what's going on in there. So it's going to be very interesting. Now, what's going to happen? As I said in the beginning of this report, I am unsure at this point if Marcy is the cruel Lord and the fierce king Isaiah talks about. What will we see shortly coming out of Egypt? And this is a major question. Will Marcy rise up and use force to overcome the millions of Egyptians who want true freedom, and will this move him into the role of the cruel and fierce king? So, if after a few hours he doesn't step down and there's a confrontation, we need to find out, or we need to watch and see what Marcy's going to do, because if he uses force, this is going to give us a better picture of the prophecy of Isaiah chapter 19. Let me show you. It can only go two ways that I can see. First, Marcy will rise up, use force to control Egypt, then continue this force to rule over Egypt. Of course, in doing so, he could become the cruel Lord, the one that the Lord was referring to in Isaiah chapter 19. However, if Egypt's military overcomes Marcy and Marcy meets the same fate as the last Egyptian president, then we have to look at the next leader who takes over Egypt as the possible cruel Lord. How many times in the past history have we seen the military overtake a leader only to install a military dictatorship? So, as I said, there's only two roads here. Either Marcy stays in office and he controls the citizens who want real, true democratic lifestyles, which would make him more of the cruel leader that we see in Isaiah 19, or he is thrown out of office and a military dictator ruler arises and he will use his dictatorship to rule over the people as a fierce king. So we're looking for either one of those possibilities. And now for the report, which the 15 pictures. Now I'm going to bring you to a website that shows you all these pictures that the Egyptians who want freedom, they can see what Obama has done to their nation because he is supporting a terrorist organization. The Muslim Brotherhood is a terrorist organization. The Muslim Brotherhood, by the way, they have forces with Al-Qaeda that Barack Obama is supporting. I did a report about this. He is supporting the rebels who want to oust Bashar al-Assad, Al-Qaeda people fighting. And that's who Barack Obama is supporting. So let's take a look at this. The headline reads, curiously, a massive wave of anti-Obama sentiment in Egypt has been utterly ignored by the vintage media. Well, obviously this is continuation of how it's been going ever since Barack Obama has become president. When you have really, really important news that everyone should be reading about, it's not covered, it's not shown on any of the major news networks. They hide these things. Even though the protest may be the largest in all of human history. This is an unquote. So I'm going to show you one picture here that I put up for you and just shows you the what it's all about. Let me go right to the article. I'll scroll down here for a second and pick up that article so that you can see all the pictures. Just take a second to bring this up here. Okay, here's the quote. Curiously, a massive wave of anti-Obama sentiment in Egypt has been utterly ignored by the vintage media, even though the protests may be the largest in all of human history. Wake up, America. Obama's back up the fascist regime in Egypt. And this is the truth. They see it. The Egyptians see what Obama's doing. He's promoting terrorism by supporting a terrorist organization, the Muslim Brotherhood. Remember, Marcy is taking freedoms away from the people. He hasn't given them the freedoms. Take a look at these pictures. There's some other ones. Obama support dictator Morsi. So this is why I've been showing you there's two roads. Either this is the dictator that Isaiah was talking about, or the next dictator will come if Morsi is thrown out. But there's only two ways. Here's some of the 15. Obama and Patterson support terrorism in Egypt. Go back home to Obama Island. And this is the Patterson is the United States ambassador to Egypt. Telling her to get out of there. Look at this one. From Tahrir Square to the U.S., media and Muslim Brotherhood. Obama, you jerk. Muslim Brotherhoods are killing the Egyptians, so how come they can guarantee you the security of Israel? Now, I've been writing, and if you look up into Google and you put my name, Frank DiMora, and Barack Obama has stabbed or put a knife in Israel's back, you will see that I've been writing how Barack Obama is, he appears to be Israel's friend, but he really isn't. We know this by the things that he's trying to do to Israel, like divide up the land, give back East Jerusalem to the Palestinians. He's taken away millions of funding and military aid to Egypt, while he's giving billions away to Al-Qaeda forces that are rebels trying to oust Bashar al-Assad, as I already stated, and giving all of this money to Egypt. So what this gentleman is saying there in Egypt is very, very true. Hey, Obama, your deal with the Muslim Brotherhood is unsuccessful. Obama, he calls him an idiot. Keep in mind that Egypt is not Muslim Brotherhoods, and if you don't believe that, go and see what's happening in Tyre. All right, take a look at some of these other pictures here that are coming out. You'll see that obviously they do not like Barack Obama. And anybody who likes freedoms obviously doesn't really care too much for Barack Obama. And the citizens of the United States of America are finding that out. As we just learned that they're being monitored, illegally being monitored. Emails and even the leaders from other countries now are in sync about what the United States is doing and spying on them. And of course, freedoms are being taken away from Americans slowly but surely. And here's another one. This is the last one. American obviously are not looked on too highly when you talk about Barack Obama in another country. So let me go back, because there is some other news as well, and I wanted to bring this to your attention. Take a look at this this next article that I'm going to bring up for you. All right, here's the other article from Rutgers, and you'll see Morsi Army refused to budge as the deadline passes. Military chiefs vowing to restore order in the country racked by protest over Morsi's Islamic policies issued a call to battle in a statement headline, "The Final Hours." They said that they were willing to shed blood against the terrorists and fools after Morsi refused to give up his elected office. Armored vehicles took up position outside the state broadcasting headquarters on the Nile River bank, where soldiers patrolled the corridors and the non-essential staff were sent home. But there was no other immediate sign of military action to remove the Muslim Brotherhood president. In the last-ditch statement a few minutes before 5 p.m., 11 a.m. and EDA deadline, Morsi's office said the coalition government could be part of an initiative to overcome a political crisis, but opposition parties refused to negotiate with him and meet instead with the commander of the armed forces. As the ultimatum expires, hundreds of thousands of anti-Morsi protesters in Tahrir Square in central Cairo left off fireworks, cheered and waved Egyptian flags in celebration. There was no immediate word from the armed forces, and the spokesman said that no fixed time has been set for the statement. Egyptian blogger Suzy tweeted. In the Egyptian, or the typical Egyptian fashion, number Egyptian is late for its own scoop. So there you have the latest on what's going on in Egypt. Again, this is really, if you're following Bible prophecy, this is really interesting, because we may be seeing, and we are seeing it, obviously, the road to fruition of Isaiah chapter 19, the prophecy about this cruel leader, this lord, this, if you will, a dictator that's going to come up, and he is going to be this fierce king that the Lord talked about. So let me take you to another story. Now the Lord told us in Matthew chapter 24, when you read verses 6 and 7, the kingdom against kingdom, but he warned about the wars and rumors of wars. This is one of the signs amongst the many signs that he told us to look for in the last days. And this article that came out yesterday talked about some of the problems, some of the wars and rumors of wars that we're seeing taking place currently. So it says the Middle East is on fire, an unsettling wrap-up of the death, destruction, and chaos from around the globe. And you'll see some of these pictures that I'm going to scroll down. It says sometimes it's hard to fully grasp how bad things are in some parts of the world. In the United States, thanks to the incredibly brave men and women in uniform, we don't have to live in constant fear of daily bombing, suicide attacks, or other horrifying acts of terror. The Middle East, on the other hand, is literally on fire. And Tuesday was deadly and chaotic for parts of the region, with nearly 70 deaths reported. Sadly, that is becoming the norm as chaos continues to destabilize parts of the globe. And again, that is definitely what the Lord told us was going to happen in the last days. And here is a recap of some of the most recent carnage. Keep in mind, these incidents are from Tuesday only. Now, I'm not going to spend much time here, but they talk about what's going on in Cairo, in Egypt, and obviously the chaos ensuing about Mohammed Morsi. And we wonder if we're going to have the civil war that we're seeing take place now in Syria. So let's just scroll down here, and we're into Iraq now. Look at this. It says, insurgents unleashed a new wave of attacks on Tuesday in Iraq, killing at least 49 people, officials said. The latest in the surge in violence across the country has raised concerns over the return of the sectarian bloodshed. Also, 7 militants were killed. So Iraq's problems, kingdom against kingdom, Iraqis against the Iraqis. Now keep in mind, these are Muslims, Islamic people who are following Allah. They're fighting and killing amongst themselves. So these people haven't learned much at all about living in peace, in harmony. Let's go on here. You see some of the carnage that they're seeing from the bombs that went off in Iraq. Now here we have in Kabul in Afghanistan, it says a suicide truck bomber followed by heavily armed men stormed NATO supplier's compound Tuesday in Kabul, prompting a gun battle that left a dozen people dead in the latest Taliban attack on the high-profile target of Afghan capital. The bold strikes have signaled the Islamic militant movement has no plans to suspend its campaign of violence, even though that they have agreed to embark on a U.S.-led peace process. Now look, there's one thing you have to understand if you haven't gotten it already. the Muslims, like the people that we see in Marcy's group, the Muslim Brotherhood, the Al-Qaeda, these groups will never stop until they get what they want. And obviously they're not going to get it, because we know that Jesus Christ is going to come before they ever are able to do what they wanted to do. In other words, they want Islam. They want Sharia law everywhere in the world. They are not going to stop doing what they do, because that is ingrained in them as they're growing up. Islam is as we can see from what's going on in these different countries that are being perpetrated by these men who are in these groups, are perpetrating these crimes, religious crimes. And you're going to see violations of their own writings, of their own religion. They are not following what they are fighting for, as you're going to see as I scroll down here a little bit and show you a video. Afghan security forces and personnel investigate the site of a suicide car bombing, the gate to the NATO compound, and this is some of the pictures that were posted for us. So we'll go down now. We're into Syria, and you can see Syrian troops shelled the suburban of Damascus Tuesday, killing at least 11 people, including women and children, as the government forces forged ahead with offenses against the rebel-held areas around the country, activists said. Now, Syria is another one of those nations that I'm really watching, because Damascus is in prophecy. Isaiah 17:1, Jeremiah chapter 49, verses 24 through 27, talk about the destruction of Damascus and Syria. And so we're watching the birth pangs of this prophecy, as well as the birth pangs of Isaiah chapter 19 coming to fruition. So again, more problems in Syria. And if you don't know, there's been over, I guess they're on their way to 100,000 people being killed in their civil war. Again, fulfillment of what the Lord said, kingdom against kingdom. Now here we go. The last one here is in Pakistan. The Pakistani intelligence officials say that unmanned U.S. aircraft fired 4 missiles at the house in northwest Pakistan, killing 4 militants. So obviously the Middle East is on fire, and there's a lot going on in the Middle East, of all of which the Lord told us, gave us warnings about these events of the last days, were kingdom against kingdoms, wars, and rumors of wars. Now, as long as I was talking about Egypt, I want to show you, because I did mention a little bit ago how the Egyptians, the people who are supposed to be following Allah and the Quran, they're actually not doing what they've been fighting for and what they espouse. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about through this article, Egypt, Epidemic of Sexual Violence. It comes also with a video. And this is what it says. Egyptian officials and political leaders across the spectrum should condemn and take immediate steps to address the horrific levels of sexual violence against women in Tahrir Square. Egyptian anti-sexual harassment groups confirmed that mobs sexually assaulted and in some cases raped at least 91 women in Tahrir Square over 4 days of protests beginning on June 30th, 2013, amid a climate of impunity. Now, this has been going on. I mean, obviously, this article is talking about what's going on just in the last 4 or 5 days, but it's been going on, as you're going to see in this video that I'm going to be playing for you, that these people, these Muslim men, who are supposed to be these very religious and strict Islamic, following Allah and Muhammad, that they're violating every law that they've been fighting for. And they're downgrading women, they're taking advantage of women, And they're doing acts of violence against women that are sinful. Watch this as I play this video for you. It comes with some writing at the bottom, but I'll stop it so that if you do have any issues in reading or hearing, I'll just read this for you.
I started taking pictures of the square, of the crowds, of the vendors. Actually, I couldn't imagine what would happen to me in a few seconds. They made a very tight circle around me. They started moving their hands all over my body. They touched every inch of my body. They violated every inch of my body. I was so much traumatized, I was only screaming at the time. I couldn't even speak. I couldn't cry help. I was just screaming.
العربية دي وقفت على شعري فهم استغلوا they took advantage يعني من ان انا
So they took advantage of the fact that I was trapped on the ground.
دماغي ثابتة في الأرض ومسكوا رجلي.
They had my legs and turned me around.
رفعوا رجلي فوق وكانوا
They raised my legs up and raped me as they wished.
ودي كانت لحظة قمة
This was my weakest point.
في السنتين اللي فاتوا شفنا العديد من الاعتداءات.
In the past 2 years, we have witnessed a number of mob assaults.
هي على المتظاهرات الموجودة.
They have happened against female protesters in Tahrir Square and Central Cairo.
في وسط القاهرة. الاعتداءات دي بتحصل.
And it happens in the absence of the police by a large number of men who sexually assault female protesters.
من الرجال اللي بيعتدوا جنسيا على المتظاهرات.
And sometimes the assault can lead to rape.
الاعتداء إلى الاغتصاب.
اليوم ده متهيألي كان في حوالي
On this day, I think there were 22 or 23 attacks.
22 23 حالة. يعني قبل ما اصور على طول كان في 3 حالات بيحصلوا.
And before I started filming, there were already 3 attacks happening in front of us at the same time.
وفي نفس الوقت احنا شايفينهم قدامنا. كانت حاجة مفزعة.
And it was scary because we heard the screaming and saw the 3 attacks.
شايفين ال3 حالات في نفس الوقت ما عندناش أعداد كافية ننزلها تحمي البنات.
There weren't enough volunteers to protect the girls. And some of our volunteers were being beaten and were bleeding. Impunity in the mob attacks and the violence against women has led to the situation where the perpetrator feels that he wouldn't be held accountable. It has also led to the rise of these types of attacks. At the same time, several initiatives to protect women have been launched by activists in civil society. As a result of the state's failure to protect women and the lack of accountability in the crimes,
I don't have so much confidence in the legal system, in the judicial system, because it goes in a very, very strange and ambiguous way. And I'm not very confident that I will get really some justice.
Sexual harassment is part of a woman's daily life in Egyptian street. Now, this is coming from a nation that is supposed to be ruled under Islamic guidelines, under law, under Allah, under the Quran, but obviously they're not following it. Conservative governments didn't take this issue seriously, which led the society accept it and blame the victim, talking about how she dresses or how she walks. Obviously, let me break it off here just for a second, because you have attacks by Satan on men, and they are listening following what Satan, and they're lusting, and they're using this as an excuse. These Egyptian women, they're using them as an excuse to sin.
برغم وعدم
And not admitting that it's a crime.
الاعتراف ان ده اعتداء، ان دي جريمه واعتداء على
It's a violation of women's right and the privacy and the freedom
حق
of
المرأة
expression.
في الخصوصية، حق المرأة في التعبير، حقها انها تمشي في الشارع
And the right to walk in the street without harassment or assault.
بدون اي مضايقات او اعتداءات.
It's sometimes that happens everywhere. Any girl walking in the street is subject to this daily. Not just a few times, but many times. Now listen to this guy. If this is not a product of a man falling into the hands of Satan and doing Satan's work, I don't know what. This is what he says. It's not a good habit, it's wrong. But they lead us to do this. I mean, don't you have, obviously, that these people under the Quran and under their faith, they don't have the wherewithal to hold back from sinning against women. Listen to what he says. Obviously, it's sick.
حاجة غلط بس يعني هم اللي بيخلونا نعمل كده من طريقة لبسهم ومن طريقة
And from the way they dress, from the way they walk, everything. What an excuse.
كل حاجة يعني
They push Egyptian men to do this. No, Satan did this. You just followed it. Satan pushed you to do this, and you finished off what Satan wanted you to do because you had no restraint. You had nothing holding you back. And you definitely need what God wants to give you, and that would be the salt of the earth. What is the salt of the earth? How do you become the salt of the earth? By receiving Jesus Christ as your Savior. And once you have Christ in you, the Holy Spirit comes in you, then you have the tools to war against Satan, who will come to you and tempt you to do the things that you have done to these women. And there will be no excuse how the women walk or how they dress. There will be no excuse. A sin is a sin, a crime is a crime. And Satan is laughing.
هم اللي بيدفعوا الشعب المصري
It has happened to me several times. But I don't always react because I'm afraid of the reaction from the guy in front of me. And I'm afraid of the people around me who won't back me up. And we have a history of oppression and bad relations with the police. Men and women fear going to the police. In the past, there was one girl speaking up every 7 months or every year. The number is much bigger. People have started talking. Women and girls are speaking up now. Those who can't talk are embarrassed or talk in front of a camera. Speak on the social media, Facebook or Twitter. And this is something that we should encourage. Because as people hear these women, they begin to act differently. Our hope, our only hope for ending future mob assault is political will on the part of the government to handle this issue. No, actually, you got that wrong. It should be the only way that you can handle this problem is to receive Jesus Christ. Because if you have people who have, again, God living in you, things change, people change, and they move away from sin. They fight against these things. They move away from doing the things that Satan wants people to do in the world. People come out of the world, and they are the salt, the Christ. People who have Christ in them are the salt of the earth. And obviously, there's not too much salt in Egypt.
وإرادة سياسية
Not only on the criminal side of holding the perpetrators accountable,
ليس فقط أن يكون هناك الشق الجنائي، أن يكون هناك محاسبة حقيقية.
but looking into the role of the media, educational institution and religious institutions.
المسؤولين عن الاعتداءات، ولكن أيضا النظر إلى دور الإعلام، دور المؤسسات التربوية، دور المؤسسات الدينية، وأن يكون هناك
and conditions between the ministries.
استراتيجية وطنية
And a national strategy to implement all these recommendations in the coming years. Well, if you have ministries there, and the ministries are obviously putting out Sharia law like they have now in Egypt, and in the Sharia law, the women don't have any rights. Obviously, take a look. What's going on? Not just in the last 4 days, but in the last couple of years. Rape after rape, assault after assault. Women are not looked at as equals in Egypt, and as a matter of fact, in many of the Muslim countries, they're not looked as equals in all of those countries. So you're not going to get too many changes, that's for sure. And expect more of these assaults, especially as you see if there's going to be a civil war in Egypt, because we're seeing the identical same things taking place in Syria. Women being raped, kids brutally beaten, killed, along with their mothers. Just a sad situation, but it's a situation that the Lord showed us that was going to happen in the last days. All right, so let's move on to another one. Matthew 24:7. Nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. We already covered that. And there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes. All right, so let's deal with earthquakes, because I've been showing you from time to time when the earthquakes come up, the Lord showed us this is one of the signs we should be looking for. And so there was another pretty big earthquake today in, let me go over to that site. Indonesia quake, tolls rises to 22. It says recruiters battled to reach survivors from an earthquake in Indonesia's Aceh province that has killed at least 22 people, including several children who died when the mosque collapsed. More than 200 people were also injured in Aceh's mountainous interior when the strong 6.1 magnitude quake struck Tuesday, flattening buildings and triggering landslides. It says the quake, which struck at the shallow depth of 10 kilometers, 6 miles, sparked panic in the natural disaster-prone region where more than 170,000 people were killed by an earthquake-triggered tsunami in 2004. So that's the latest of the big quakes that have just come up. And as they do come up, I'll keep reporting on all these things. But keep in mind, all of these things are signs of the last days prophecies, as the Lord told us to be keeping our eyes on. Now, the war against powers and principalities, Satan, war against Satan. Take a look at this. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. And that's why I just got through saying a little bit ago when we were talking about Egypt, about coming out of the world. The Lord told us to come out of the world. And the only way that you could do that, by receiving the Lord, becoming born again, so that you can have the Holy Spirit living in you. Now we know that just like in what's going on in Egypt, there's definitely spiritual warfare. Satan has gotten to these men. these men have caved in and they've sinned against God, sinned against the women, sinned against society, if you will. So So, let me show you part of this spiritual warfare that we're fighting against Satan through this article called Texas Capitol Abortion Supporters Chant Hail Satan. There's an article from July the 3rd today. You see, as Texas gears up to push legislation that would prohibit late-term abortions, those conducted after 20 weeks, Christian activists in Texas state capitol sang Amazing Grace. Abortion rights activists there to support killing kids tried to shut down the Christians by chanting, "Hail Satan." And there is a video here that, let me play this video for you. You'll probably have to play it again several times, but I wanted to show you that this is what's going on, and you know, you're talking about sacrificing your own kid. Now, 20 weeks is a long time. This is a life that God has created in the womb, and going in and destroying, killing this child, whether it be girl, boy, or whatever, is murder. You're killing. God sees what's going on. And so let me play this for you. All right. So that's the society in which we live today. These are the things that the Lord said were going to happen, and there's no doubt they are happening. Now let me move on to this last prophecy for today in this video. Again, Matthew chapter 24:7. In this particular prophecy, it talks about pestilence. This would be disease. Let me go over to that article. You see the CBS out of New York, the new tick-borne illness could be worse than the Lyme disease. And it comes with a video. Let me play this for you.
Health news now, and it looks like Lyme, but it isn't. Doctors have discovered a new tick-borne illness.
And adding to new worry now to a problem that already affected nearly 100,000 New Yorkers since the state first started keeping track. CBS 2's Dr. Max Gomez explains.
This is the bad guy, a common deer tick, capable of spreading dangerous germs right into your bloodstream. For Jessica Thompson, 2 years ago, it was Lyme disease.
Mental confusion, disabling pain all over, headaches. I had to cut back on my job because I couldn't work. But after a year of treatment, I'm actually better now.
But Lyme is just one of many diseases that ticks carry, the latest of which looks like a Lyme bug. In fact, it's related, and an infected person will suffer similar symptoms.
Patients with this illness will develop perhaps fever, headaches, flu-like symptoms, muscle pains. Most of them will not develop the typical rash that you see with Lyme disease.
Dr. Brian Fallon, a renowned expert on Lyme disease at the New York State Psychiatric Institute, says the importance of the new bug, called Borrelia miyamotoi, is that it might explain some cases of what looked like chronic Lyme disease, but didn't test positive for Lyme.
The problem is that the diagnosis is going to be missed, and it's going to be missed because doctors aren't going to think of Borrelia miyamotoi because they don't know about it, number one. Number two, if they do test for Lyme disease, it'll test negative and the rash won't be there. So they're not going to treat with the antibiotics. So then the patient will have an infection that's staying in their system longer than it should.
While there is no test yet for the new germ, the good news is that it appears that the same antibiotic that kills Lyme also works if it's given in the right doses and started early in the infection. Remember, it takes a tick bite to get Lyme disease or the new bug, and the tick usually has to feed on your blood for at least 24 hours. So if you've been outdoors, have someone do a full body check. You may not see one on your back. Ticks are small, only about the size of a sesame seed. Maurice, Christine?
Dr. Max, thank you.
Well, there you have it. So we're seeing all different kinds of different diseases popping up. And in my book, you're going to be able to look at all of these different. Let me scroll up there for a second. If you just found my website. In my book that you can get today for free, you'll see the last Chronicles of Planet Earth. Just go down at my site, either at this site, Bible Prophecy Man, or when my site comes back up again at the End Times Research Ministry. Just click on the link, and let me just show you as long as we're in here for the new people. Bear with me if you've been with me for a while. When you click the link, this is what's going to happen. You'll see that it's going to download at the bottom. It doesn't take long, again, depending on your computer. And once you get it, just open it up and start scrolling down, because you'll see the book will come up. And here's all the chapters on it. And obviously today with this earthquake, I'm just going to have to add into the earthquakes. You'll see on page 169. So let's just venture out here for a second. This is, again, for the new people. There's the earthquakes. That's where it started. But when you scroll down, you'll see all the information about the earthquakes. As long as I'm here, just let me show you some of the things that have happened in 2013, the more recent events that have happened. And here it is in 2013. And you'll see that there's quite a bit of information about big earthquakes, not just the small ones, but earthquakes that are at least a 6.0. And those are big quakes. And then, of course, we have the bigger quakes mixed in here. But you'll see that the last one I put up was June the 24th. That was a 6.4 earthquake. And, of course, the one that just hit today is 6.1. is one that I'm going to be adding to the books today as well. But that's the way it is, and you keep scrolling down, you get to the rest of the chapters, but it's all free to you today. And there's more information, or there's enough information in this book that will be able to show you that what the Lord has prophesied is coming to pass in our generation. Everything that He said is coming to pass. And it won't be long before the rest of the prophecies that haven't been fulfilled will be fulfilled. So this is Frank DiMora reporting from and for the last Chronicles of Planet Earth at my older site, BibleProphecyMan.com. God bless, and remember, you never know, is today going to be your last day or not? It would be a good day to enter into the kingdom, and the only way that can happen is by receiving Jesus Christ as your Savior.